little bit about myself. I've been in the industry for 11 years, former owner and operator of the Dane County Community Digester outside of Wanakee. We also were in partnership with the Crave brothers out on their farm, helping them make some green cheese, so to speak. From there, we went into, we sort of hit the end of a power purchase agreement. We owned it back in the days where electricity was generated. RNG was the next thing. It was my business partner and I. They're like, hey, $6 million for, I have RNG. We're like, see you later. So we sold, we got out, we went into an O&M business. From there, what I realized along the way is policy has a lot to do with the success of these facilities, as do relationships with the community, with the farms themselves. This led me down a rabbit hole to going into policy. We started the Wisconsin Biomass Energy Coalition in 2019 to try and make it easier to site more of these facilities in the state. I worked with the American Biogas Council, overseeing state level policy for the US for a few years, and then went to an EPC. So I've sort of seen just about everything you can see in the biogas world. I'll tell you, just today, it's going to be light and easy. We got 30 minutes, and we're down to fewer than that, so we can keep on going on. Types of biofuels, I think everybody's fairly familiar with this. We've got the biogas that's then turned into RNG. You can still make it into electricity. In some states, there are programs designed to subsidize the rate. Vermont's great for it. Last I checked, it was 26 cents a kWh. So they place value on that. We've got ethanol and biodiesel, renewable diesel. And then the emerging fuels from biogas and other feedstocks is sustainable aviation fuel, which is just a teeny tiny percentage of what's being used when you get onto an airplane these days. United and Delta are fairly heavily invested in it, as well as the European airlines. Finally, and then marine fuels. I can tell you that there's a lot of interest in this, to the point that the American Biogas Council now has committees for both those emerging markets. Basically, when it comes down to this, feedstocks matter. Markets and buyers matter. And the outcomes are 100% dependent on system design. And let me, I can give you a little example of that. Oh, I hate microphones. Like, it's, we're amongst friends. Also, if you've got a question as we go along, feel free to raise your hand. I mean, this is just a conversation. So on the feedstock front, biofuels aren't abstract. We need to know where these materials are coming from. The value of biogas is based on what material goes into that tank. So manure has a high carbon intensity score, which increases the value of the credits that are traded in California. So if you add food waste to that, you decrease the value, but you also then are able to make some money off of the tipping fees. So it becomes a financial puzzle on how you want to manage your asset. Second, you need an off-taker. Like, you can make all the gas you want, but if you don't have somebody reliably taking that gas from you, your business model is not going to work. And then system designs are interesting. Technology is just one piece. Essentially, a digester, it's just a big tank. It's a heated tank. It's like your stomach. And I really wish I would have put the cow image of how digesters work into this. But when John and I got into this business, he was my business partner, and he was like, oh, I know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be like Southwest Airlines. We are going to build the same tank, use the same parts, we'll have centrally located facilities with these parts. We can get them out to the places that they need to be used. And then we bought 2 facilities and found out, oh, you silly people. These are unicorns. While the technology, the system is essentially the same, what you put into it, where it's located, how the farms operate, whether they use sand bedding, hay, or they use the solids from the digester, this all makes a difference into the operations. And so it really does become about how your system is designed. So it's not only biology when it comes to running these facilities. Really quickly, has anyone seen a digester before? Awesome. Very cool. And you get smell-o-vision that way. Like I said, you can put any kind of a waste into a tank. And by the way, most of the digesters here in Wisconsin are wastewater based, so they're part of the public utility system. The organic material goes in, it stays within that tank for about 25 to 30 days. On an average, it is a constant flow, so continuous flow. That's why the on average becomes important. You output biogas, and then there's stuff you have to deal with on the other end. And that is generally separated into a liquid fraction and the solids. Liquids are easy. They go back to the farm. It becomes part of the nutrient management plan. Oh, you're lovely. Thank you. And so you suddenly have a really great carbon-based fertilizer going into the ground. The solids get a little more difficult. It's amazing how much you have to manage, and so it becomes a materials handling business. Where does it go? If it's cow bedding, great. It goes back. The farms will bring their trucks over, pick it up, haul it out. They can be made into those little pots when you go buy your annuals at Home Depot or somewhere. Those little compostable pots. That's likely solids, cow solids, or some other animals. And it can be land applied, but you'll want to be careful on the ammonia that comes with it. The waste stream's really gnarly when it comes down to it. You're dealing with hydrogen sulfide and ammonia, which you don't, again, it becomes an interesting mix. Quickly, people are like, oh, you put it in a digester and the nutrients just go away. And elemental science tells us that doesn't happen. The only thing digesters allow us to do is move it intentionally from one place to another. And the digesters here in Dane County were built in partnership with the county for one reason and one reason only, and that is to remove phosphorus from the waste stream. And the intent on that was to protect the Yahara chain of lakes. And so those facilities have an added benefit. Not only are they dealing with all this material processing through and where does it go and how do you do it, but you also have to keep track of the phosphorus that's being removed from the waste stream. So it's doing good. It does have an impact on the lakes. I also sit on the Clean Lakes Alliance board, and there has been marked improvement over the past 5 years, which is really exciting. Not entirely because of phosphorus removal, but take what we can get, right? So biofuels, first of all, we can decarbonize hard to electrify sectors with this. So we're talking about trucking, transportation. There are truck engines now that have been specifically designed to run on RNG, which is amazing. Cummins and Volvo, I want to say, just had one. Biogas uses RNG uses existing infrastructure. So, this is a great opportunity not only to take a waste stream that we are going to have regardless, right? We've got dairy farms. It's part of our economy. It's a big part of the culture. So let's do what we can to capture that gas and use it. It's reliable, right? It's like a base load, potentially, when used correctly. I'm going to skip that because I really want to get to some of the fun stuff. Here's what makes biogas a challenge. Policy. It was subsidized with an electricity rate back in the day. And then that was coming to an end, and the industry was like, hair on fire. I based my business plan on 11.5 cents of a blended kilowatt rate, and suddenly we're going to drop to 3. Well, that dog don't hunt, right? So RNG came down the path, and that was the next gold mine, right? And it was crazy. It was really insane in Wisconsin, actually across the U.S., but large farms developers knocking on doors. And most of those big facilities have been built. And they are producing renewable natural gas. It's going into, the A&R pipeline. When you turn on your stove in your house and the burner on, it's the same quality gas. And that, coming from cow poop, all right, I'm going to make a side joke here. The fact that we are in the KLOP room is beyond funny to me. We are, policy uncertainty really has a lot to do with this. Just this week, with the IRA rollbacks that happened, the industry shut down. We shut down from January of last year, March? I think it was March when that all rolled out. And it's just been uncertain. We're waiting for the dust to settle. Well, that only works so long when you're in a business, right? So this week, 45Z guidance came out. The commentary period started. And it's not bad for dairy. It's not a bad outcome for dairy. But what I will say is we now know what the playing field looks like, right? It'll change a little bit during the comment period and before it's, finalized, but we got an idea of what we can work with, and that's really helpful. Now, will that get undone in 3 years? I don't know. The industry is really taking a hard look at itself to say, how do we operate? How do we make this work where everything else around us is icing on the cake instead of necessary to make the project pencil? So, I'm a fan of figuring this out, right? It's just, let's start right-sizing this and making it work with intent and not hope as a business plan. Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about sort of your take on the 45Z guidance?
I
know it's early, just came out, so
yeah. If you guys want to, hold on. I sent actually, my email will be at the end, and I wrote a summary to a team that I'm working with, and I would be delighted to share that. Okay. Play from current slide. Okay. The one thing, and this would be my hope of all hopes, is eventually we get to e-RINs, where we can start generating electricity on smaller farms, let those farmers participate in something that's beneficial, that extra revenue stream. Yeah. So digesters aren't a silver bullet. They're not going to fix everything. There's just all these different inputs that influence how these facilities work. All right, I'm going to pop off on why this matters in Wisconsin, because I woke up at 5:30 this morning and had a completely different idea of how I wanted to present today. So you can take a lovely view of a flower, and this is where we get into conversation. So Wisconsin imports almost all of its energy source. That means money that we earn is going out of our state. And if we're looking at renewables, this is the way that a couple of different things come from that, right? Our money stays in the state, first and foremost. Secondly, we are in charge of our generation. That is security. And how I think going forward, based on a couple of conversations last night, I was like, how do we stack this stuff so that we can have a more secure outcome? That we're more in charge of, of our sources, and I love this idea, and I don't know how to do it, trust me. But it just got me to thinking last night. I was like, gosh, how do we do this? How do we go from just solar, just wind, just biogas, just storage, and work within the system, because this is all going on the fly, right? The utilities are working as hard as we are right now. So anyway, I'll just drop that little seed of a question out there, but this woke me up from a dead sleep. So yeah, I work for you. Yeah. So listen, the reason I start, the reason I think I'm talking more about digesters than ethanol and biodiesel and stuff is because it's familiar. We've seen them. You drive around Wisconsin, you're bound to come across one of these facilities and see those ginormous tanks sticking up out of the ground. Not all of them stick up out of the ground. Some are in the ground. So they address the problem of methane from an organic waste source. And we're going to have those waste sources no matter what. If you look at the expansion of population here in Dane County, right, by 2050, double the population. That is double the human waste solids, double the need for housing. Where's that housing going to go? It's going to go on some of the acres that we're currently farming and spreading manure and other things on, right? So how does this all integrate and fit together? I mean, this is our Wisconsin, right? And Madison's not the only place that's growing, right? The state's increasing in population. It's pretty darn cool. So it makes the trade-offs visible, right? So going back to what the other piece of it too is the water quality. I mean, we're the land of 15,000 lakes in the state. I mean, that's recreation, that's fun, that's sources of food. What do we need to do? Digesters help with this. I hear occasionally conversations around the environmental issues, they just support big farms. Well, first and foremost, big farms already exist, right? We are addressing a challenge, and I will just say that as a challenge, right? Because larger farms give us $3 gallons of milk and, cheap cheese. And so, tax revenue that pays roads educates kids. That's sort of my little controversial stand on that, but, I'll be there. So how do we do this? How do we do this? I mean, dairy's a big deal in our state, right? I mean, it's part of the culture. When we help our farms, what we're doing by processing that waste is digesters do help kill pathogens. They also reduce the odor that would normally be there. And it allows us to put the waste stream intentionally in places. So there's this process at the end of the digester, and all the material goes through and it's separated. So it goes either through a screw press where it's like super squeezed, the liquid drops down, the solids move forward, or it goes through a centrifuge, which is, if you've ever been to, oh boy, I don't know if they still have this at Great America, but there's these rides where you line a circle and it starts spinning really fast. They drop the floor out and you're stuck. Yeah, they're doing that with cow poop, which is, it's very loud. That allows us to do material control, which is amazing. Additionally, farmers have been getting paid for their manure. So it helps buffer some of those ups and downs that they experience through input prices, milk price volatility. Oops, oh, that one's live too. Let's see. Where are we at? Oh my God, we got 9 minutes. I think digesters may end up having another moment in that we are seeing in several instances across the country a sort of a movement of food waste diversion. And landfills are aging and they are getting more and more occupied with stuff. So my guess is it's easier to put a digester somewhere than it is to site a new landfill, but I'm spitballing on that. And so this may be, in the coming years, another area where we are going to experience growth for the industry. Again, it's all a conversation, because it's not just food waste goes in. Where's the food waste coming from? Where's it being grown? This is just a cog in a machine. It's a helpful tool. So anyway, back, like I was saying, I would love to start having these conversations on how do we stack this? How do we make this a system? How do we make this baseload generation for something like potentially, I don't know, maybe a data center? It doesn't have to be a huge piece of it. There's conversations about right-sizing data centers now. So not these massive installations that we've been reading about in the paper online. There's opportunities here and conversations to be had. And, my favorite thing to do is to stir a pot and see what happens. So, this is kind of the thing that I'm enjoying at the moment. But it has to work economically. So markets. The low carbon fuel standard is basically, California is paying to decarbonize the United States, and they've somewhat had enough of it and are reducing the reach of that market. Now we've got others. We've got Washington, Oregon, and New Mexico. Just came online April 1st. It will have its own low carbon fuel standard. One's being considered in Illinois. Minnesota's been tossing around one. New York's New York. Exactly, Steve. There will be other markets. This all takes time, though, right? Like that is, I think New Mexico's took four congressional sessions to get it across the finish line. Capital intensity and risk. When policy changes, that makes investment folks with money like a little dicey, and so the industry has some thinking to do. I think how do you approach design? How do these systems work? What are we trying to accomplish? Can you put in a CO2 column and capture the carbon dioxide that's coming off this stream? That can actually be reused for all sorts of really cool stuff. There's the Middleton facility, and they've got the digesters, solar, and battery storage on site. I mean, even to retrofit some of these facilities for that. There's a company out there right now that just launched an AI platform that integrates with the SCADA systems that run these, and so it will learn how these systems run over time and can increase the biogas production. So we're seeing change. We're seeing advancements. Necessity drives invention, right? So we are. I think we're going to see some really interesting stuff happen over the next couple of years. The cool thing about that platform as well is it's for existing assets. Let's maximize production of existing assets in the industry. That is a guaranteed way to make more money. That's not policy dependent. Let's see. Is there anything else? I'm dying to get in here. I don't know. You guys got any thoughts? Yeah.
So what's the agricultural communities, the farmers, the dairy producers, the beef producers, I have to believe that they look at a wide range of opportunity for them to make money. Where do they sit on, this whole movement into methane production and biofuels? I mean, they're the ones that are the key player in moving any type of policy or change that's needed to, develop this type of energy system. I would think that's the first nut you got to crack.
Yeah.
In this whole formula.
There are a couple of dairies left in Wisconsin, like bigger ones, that are not fans. And what I will say is that when the digesters started to hit the scene late 2000s, And developers developed and salesmen sold. I don't think they did. I don't think they did right by the agricultural community in those days. And so, these guys talk. These guys talk. And God bless them. We've been trying to right that ship for a really long time. I will say with the renewable natural gas phase, that was a much kinder to the industry. But, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's generally the way the farmers that I know operate. And so, there has to be a convincing argument. What's in it for them, really, is what comes down to it. And when renewable natural gas came on the scene, I think they did a better job treating the farmers well. And these are mostly, the farms don't operate it, it's just on their land. Farmers are supposed to farm. Digester owners get people to run them. So hopefully, there aren't that many farms left in Wisconsin. What I'd like to, my hope of hopes would be that we get errands at some point so that we can get smaller farms. Basically, you can't have a farm with, there has to be an amalgamation of at least 2,500 animals to make those facilities pencil. So, anybody that's below 2,500, or if you're not sited near another farm to make that number where you could share that resource, it doesn't work. But, I would love to see it where we could generate electricity instead of, for these smaller farms. We could. We'd just make 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which stinks. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you talked about the ability to sell waste as one of the strategies that farmers can use to stabilize their revenue stream. Sort of a competing means to stabilize the revenue stream is to turn arable land into solar fields. And so I'm wondering if you can contrast the economics of turning sunlight directly into electricity versus turning sunlight into milk and meat and the waste into electricity. But sort of from the farmer's perspective, is one favorable?
I haven't asked that question, but it's kind of a yes and proposition. I think what happens is solar on acres, right? That means acres are out of rotation. That means they're not spreadable, right? Digesters can be run so as to decrease. There's places where you can take the waste stream, like the liquid waste on the back end, and reduce the volume of it. Half turns into potable water, half turns into concentrated nutrients. Mixed results, right? But it is possible. I think this is where that opportunity, where we could start putting our brains together and start thinking about this in a different way instead of competing, right? Because acres are acres, and the farm's going to get paid no matter what, right? Whether it's manure, payment for manure, which I think last time I heard was 3 or 4 cents a gallon. It's a pretty good revenue stream. And then there's the payment for the actual acreage and the installation. So I don't know. I don't know what that answer is, but I love the question. And if anybody else knows, please. Look at this, 8:45. 8:45. I am happy, I'm happy to share the 45Z commentary if anybody wants it. I've got another paper on RNG versus SAF versus hydrogen. Jessica at Newcomers Consulting just emailed me, and I'm happy to send that stuff along. But thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.